In order for a trans person to feel like they can bring their entire selves to work, you've got to also take into account a lot of these folks are also neurodiverse.
Content warnings for this episode include misgendering, anti-trans bigotry, dysphoria, mental health, drug abuse, religion, bullying, and self-harm.
Genderful would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples and unceded lands that the producers, hosts, and guests that lived and have built upon. Today we honor the
Salish,
the Mohawk, Algonquin, and Anishinabewaki,
Tsalaguwetiyi and Mvskoke,
Salish and Nisqually.
Tongva.
We honor the elders, the human, plant, and animal ancestors of these lands, and celebrate the living descendants of these peoples. May all beings tend these lands for the goodness of the next 7 generations and beyond.
Howdy folks, welcome to Genderful, a talk show interviewing gender diverse people about their special interests. Hi, I'm GenderMeowster, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and my pronouns are she, her.
The focus of our show is to interview trans, non-binary, agender, two-spirit, and gender diverse people regarding their special interests, passion projects, and resources for the gender diverse community.
We want our audience to know that we hold multiple diverse identities and bring these lenses to the show with our passion for telling our stories.
I identify as non-binary, trans-masculine, polyamorous, ADHD, autistic, and disabled with chronic pain and mobility issues. I also am white and reside in the United States.
I identify as trans-feminine, neurodivergent, queer, and a person of color residing in Canada. We invite you to remember that we are whole people with robust lives, friendships, challenges, and successes. We love and are loved, and we are delighted to share these stories with you.
As always, we kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of their identities. Your identities can change over time and are valid every step of the way. And if you think you're gender diverse, you are gender diverse. There's no social or medical prerequisite to be included in the community. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. For those just tuning in, this is the Genderful special episode about being trans at work. We have a panel discussion today. It is also, the live recording is happening on November 6th, so it is Job Action Day. And this may actually end up being a part 2 in the recorded, edited versions. So welcome to part 2, I guess. We had so much fun info dumping. We had to make 2 episodes. Ta-da! It's happened maybe twice that I can remember on Genderful before. So anyways, so welcome back to my wonderful guest, Tofi, they, them, who is a senior data analyst, TransCapybara, she, her, who is a senior principal software engineer, Gaby M, they, them, who is a creative consultant and strategist in the advertising realm, and Miranda, she, her, also known as NassAttack, who is not only my co-host on Genderful, but is also an economist with the Government of Canada. I am GenderMeowster, my pronouns are they, them, and I am your host today and many days of the Genderful podcast. Welcome back, everybody. Tofi's having a conversation with the cat. It's great. Yep. It's so cute.
He's over here screaming his little head off. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Is that Tofu or another cat? Tofu? Okay, great. Love it.
Yeah, Tofu. Leonard is very kindly sleeping.
Great.
This is the old man.
Good job, Leonard. Yeah. Tofu's being a little hecker.
Yeah,
this is the way.
The hectic toddler that just screams and runs around 24/7. It's like having a child.
It is.
Speaking of heckers, I was in the store and saw a checkers board, and I'm like, oh, if you just cover the C, that's heckers.
Heckers at a store near you. We do have a stretch and hydrate reminders from the chat. Thank you, Pluto, for reminding us to take care of our bodies. Yeah. It was a little group stretch. Excellent. So, for those of you who have had to come out at work more than once, what was that like for you? How did it compare to your initial coming out? And, is there anything else you want to share about that experience?
I'm currently in it, so it's been interesting. I got a lot of ideas from the other panelists on what else to recommend to
Nice. That's great.
My company, but I'd say where I'm at, or I guess kind of the first time coming out, I feel like I had already been out as queer for many years, right? It almost feels to me like, okay, like not necessarily that I'm starting from scratch, but it's like I'm learning to ride a different kind of bicycle after learning how to ride a bicycle. Like maybe
You're also an avid cyclist in your life.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay,
how do e-bikes work? What's happening?
Right, exactly. Or even like a scooter, like a different two-wheel,
like a Vespa. Like
yeah.
I'm sitting down now. Oh, interesting.
And like some things, like some discomforts, I like remind myself, like I had this the first go around. Like I just have to get used to the kind of the coming out every day. It's just a different type of coming out that I'm used to. And now I'm at the point where my work friends are my allies. Like where like the example I gave where a coworker kind of said, "Oh, I saw what you're doing," and now they're kind of advocating for me and being allies in that way. Um, and even just being comfortable, like reminding a coworker, like, "Oh, my pronouns are they them." But then it's also like choosing my battles. I don't always have all the spoons to go and say, actually, my pronouns are they them. Like there are just days where it's like we're fine. Like I'm fine. I don't have the spoons right now to like address and probably have a lot of it needs to be with someone at work. Um, but just trying to kind of navigate those and remind myself that, it's just for me personally, it's a muscle. Like I treat it as like a muscle. I just have to slowly work on it every day. Um, but then also being in kind of like in a leadership position, um, participating in panels like this, or kind of just networking and learning from others what has worked for you to bring to my own company, or even, bring to my team, bring to my boss, bring to other team leads, and then bring it to the company as a whole. But it's, taking it one day at a time as I can, one petal at a time.
Nice. Has anyone else had to come out more than once?
I mean, I kind of talked about it earlier. I mean, if you're listening to this in the future and you're only listening to part 2 for some reason, then go back to part 1, where I talk about having to come out more than once.
Yeah.
But the quick summary is that I came out when we were all working from home before we had to return to office, so it was only really my division that knew. And then now that I'm back at the office, I'm having to, be there and present the way I present now, and so there's people that may not necessarily work with, but I may have known. So just a super quick anecdote. I was, just sitting in my office, drinking my coffee, and somebody walks by, and they kind of like did a double take and recognized me, and they were like trying to figure out like where they knew me from. And it's like, I kind of make eye contact. It's like, yeah, we know each other. We were in a course together. It's like someone I was actually like on a team with during like a workplace course. And it's like, yeah, it's like, he's like, what's your name again? It's like, well, it's Miranda now. So we ended up chatting for, a good half an hour, but yeah, I'm going to have a bunch of conversations like that of like, because I work in such a large organization that people that I may have like crossed paths with at some point, like years ago, that will see me, and then they may or may not recognize me because I look very different and I sound very different and I dress very different. So yeah, so it's, you never come out just once. It's you're coming out over and over and over. So
it's true. Yeah.
I've got something similar to that where so a researcher who I loved, she was the first person I ever worked with at the company on a project, like on a really large project where I was doing a lot of work and constantly talking to her over like literally multiple times a day. She ended up leaving whenever I was still under my dead name and identifying as a cis woman. She came back 2 years later and I was like, oh my gosh, hey, like under the new name, under the new pronouns, with the new handle, like everything. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited you're back. I'm so excited to work with you again. And she was like, who are you? She was like, I don't know who you are. I'm so sorry. And I was like, yes. It was so funny. I had to be like, well, we worked on this project. I was a whole different persona back then. So like things like that. It's hilarious. I love it.
So this second, Cappy, did you have something to share?
Oh, well, I'm trying to navigate coming out as autistic at work, actually.
Let's hear about that.
So, that's a hard one, actually. I don't know how to navigate that. I've been trying to like join the ERGs that are aligned with that whole, that whole community of folks, and trying to like reach out to people and see like how they may have navigated themselves. And a lot of people are just they ask for accommodations, but they don't actually say like why. And at my workplace, you don't have to say why. And I think that's great. And so I have been asking for accommodations in that way. So there's like special software that you can get to understand people's voices better. There's software out there that will allow you to navigate things with your voice if you are not very good at typing, or just things of that nature. There's assistive technologies essentially. So I'm trying to go down that road of self-advocation. I've trying to figure out like how I can be supported in that way. And it's taken me, somewhere, but I don't know if I'll ever come out as autistic at work without a lot of assurances that I'm not going to be like immediately put on some sort of a list to be fired the next go round. So I'm not a fan of worrying about that. Yeah. And this was a point I tried to bring up at the conference I went to, that in order for a trans person to feel like they can bring their entire selves to work, you've got to also take into account a lot of these folks are also are also neurodiverse.
Yeah.
And so you've got to support the intersectionality of it all. On top of everything else that's intersectional about them. So like there's a more holistic picture needed to take into account here. You can't just ask someone to come out at work and then hide that the fact that they have ADHD and are autistic. It's not realistic, right? So yeah, I'm still navigating that. I don't really have a good answer for it, but just know that particular interaction does exist, and there's people that struggle with it like me. So yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, like as I'm learning and like learning to unmask as well, something that I've been trying to get better at with is like telling people how best to communicate with me. That way I'm not like explicitly saying like, oh, I'm autistic or oh, I'm neurodivergent, because just having those labels can really negatively affect you, unfortunately. And like, because rip our whole society, right? Screw everything. But I try to frame it in a way to where like if you know, but like for people who maybe not be like who aren't like as tuned in, like I tell them I've got like audio processing issues where like I very much communicate really well with very direct language and very much via like emails. Like, do not cold call me. I will cry if my day is thrown off by someone calling me. I have had like senior VPs at this company call me before, and I'm like, y'all got to stop doing that. Like, no, because it just throws everything out of the window. Or I'll like explicitly block time off my calendar, because I know that for me, I need to have structure to where every day when I get in, I have to make when I get in, I work remotely. Like I know that I have to have my coffee and I have to take my medication, and then I have to like go through all my emails before I can start working on things, because I need that kind of structure in order for my day to actually go well, which, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you're lucky. And so I've tried to, ensure to like block off my calendar during the morning times for like a good like hour if I can, and like try to tell people, like, please don't schedule meetings from like before 9 a.m. Otherwise, like in my brain, I'm like, otherwise it's going to throw off my entire day. But I don't tell them that. I'm like, oh, it's just really early. The cats are getting up, blame it on the pets. So I try to like get around it that way. And that's been really helpful to make sure that I actually have that structured schedule time. That way I can work productively as a normal human being that they need in this crappy capitalistic society.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
interesting.
yeah, no, the whole like neurodivergence component, it's, I mean, so I work in a very collegiate environment. A lot of academics are tends to be people that I work with. So neurodivergence is, I would say, is fairly rampant in my organization. But even that being said, so stuff like, like early morning meetings, like Tofi, 100%, I'm with you there. Never ever book me for a meeting before 10:30. I'm just like, no, hard pass. But like, I feel like nobody else in my organization wants to have early morning meetings or the late afternoon meetings. Like, we're all lazy public servants, quote unquote. Everyone goes home at 3. Like, no one is booking me for a 4 o'clock meeting. Um, but that being said, like, when I was coming back to work and I was, asking for accommodations, I was like, hey, like, I need like my own private office. So I ended up having to like negotiate down to just like a permanent assigned office because yeah, I mean, I also have like sensory overload problems. I need like working in an open office is like really hard for me, and like just constant
Mhm.
distractions and stuff like that. And I asked for like a private office, and I got a lot of hemming and hawing. It's like, oh yeah, well, we need a doctor's note and we need blah blah blah, and we have to go. I'm just like, long story short, I didn't want to go through all that. So
Mhm.
just like, you know what, I will deal with it for now. And if I find that it's not working for me, then I can go through, all the steps to jump through all the hoops that they want me to jump through. But
Yeah,
so far it's been fine. The office they gave me is actually really good. So
that's good.
I have a nice corner office with a very nice view. So
That's great.
um, but yeah, it's just stuff like that. Just asking for accommodations. It's like, you're going to be asked for doctor's note sometimes. And when you have
Hmm.
to give a doctor's note, that kind of outs what kind of condition you have. And you may have to disclose more information than you're personally comfortable with. And I'm sure this is something we'll get into later in our discussion with healthcare at work. But yeah, I've had to
Hmm.
disclose a lot of things to my insurer that's were well and above and beyond what's necessary. So, but yeah, that's yeah, it's tough. That's my very long-winded way of saying it's tough.
Um, that's a great transition into our next question, which is, what is it like navigating healthcare at work? Is your gender affirming care, if you have or plan to seek it, covered? What is it like? And we can talk more than just being trans. We can talk about, and I'm using trans expansively to be all the
Mhm.
genders that are not cis. But not only trans care, but also, neurospicy related things or other, right? Like, often there is a fairly high comorbidity between being gender diverse and being neurodivergent. And there's also a fairly high comorbidity between being neurodivergent and being CPTSD, because the world is not shaped for people who are neurospicy and not cis. And so um, there are often thousands of micro traumas that pile up and cause PTSD or CPTSD. And I'm not saying anyone here is disclosing that they may or may not be those things. Just to
Mhm.
be clear, I'm just saying there's a trend. And so, within your level of comfort in a public forum, what has it been like for you to navigate healthcare at work? And, maybe if you have recommendations of how to make it better, because I definitely know, Cappy and I are on the same health insurance, so I have my own opinions about how our healthcare coverage could be better. But yeah, just that sort of topic. And we'll do popcorn again, and anyone can answer in whatever order you feel comfortable.
I can jump in. I'm kind of in the thick of the research.
Mm-hmm.
And like feeling lucky and grateful that I like have full support of a therapist and a primary care doctor who like no questions asked, like immediately, whatever referrals I need. um but even even having that support still has its challenges, in the sense that like all the paperwork is, there's no guidance of like do this, do that, do this. Thankfully there are other resources through friends who've gone through the process, that has been kind of like the, like to me, what's been really helpful for me. But if I didn't have that, it would probably still take me even longer. But yeah, I'm in the process right now, and it's like even like going through the health insurance broker, like just seems like a giant mountain to climb. But yeah, just trying to lean into the resources I do have, and we'll see how it goes. I'd say too, and not quite part of the question, but also just thinking through like what my social transition is going to be for being non-binary, having top surgery, for example, but not necessarily hormone hormone transition, at least for right now in my current plans. So then kind of then bringing that to work, knowing that I'll look different for sure to my coworkers, but then not necessarily knowing um, what else does that mean for me because their preconceived notions of trans is very different than what I'm going through. And so, one thing, for example, that is in the back of my mind from time to time is the floor where I work. It's split. There's my company on one side of the floor and another company on the other side. So the bathrooms are for both companies, and they're both cis bathrooms. So that'll probably be a conversation when I present more mass and how to navigate that. So another follow-up journey
Yeah.
branch for another time.
What about
Yeah, it's
others?
difficult.
How's it been navigating healthcare at work?
I can go. Yeah, so I am on HRT. I've been on a low dose of T-gel since 2022 August. And thankfully that was fairly simple because I do informed consent, which means like they just, read off the instructions, say like make sure that they know like that I know everything that kind of goes into it, what things are going to change, things like that. So I don't need a therapist letter or like, approval from anyone in order to get on it. So that was really, really nice. Fun thing is that we are changing our healthcare plan at the beginning of this upcoming year. And so I feel like a lot of folks, especially who do healthcare plans, do not realize how stressful that is. Like, we have been working on going through all the new documentation, which we don't even have we had to enroll for benefits this week. And we don't even have the document, like the plan summaries. We don't have them for another couple of weeks. So we're sitting here enrolling in benefits for an entire year, not knowing what's going to be covered. And they keep telling us it's going to be exactly the same. Don't worry, you're going to have all the coverage. But the thing is, we had to fight really hard 2 years ago to get quote unquote cosmetic surgeries and cosmetic procedures for transgender folks like
Yeah.
accepted into our healthcare plan. And right now, on all of the online documents that this new healthcare plan has, says that they do not cover them. And so we're sitting here trying to like actively fight against that, but we can't like literally can't do anything until we get the healthcare plans, and by then it might be too late. So like it's been really stressful. And even like having some of those, like even in the little languages used, like you have to be like a lawyer sifting through these plans because
Yeah.
one person, one of the people, one of the trans folks who confides in me a lot at work, his wife has been getting like a lot of trans like things done, and these insurance people have no clue what's covered, y'all. Like they have no freaking idea what is in these healthcare plans. And the
They
amount of
don't.
times
It's
that,
true.
yeah, it's wild. Like the amount of times that they've had to sit there for hours educating these insurance people of like, hey, this is covered. If you read over our documentation plans like 17 times, it's literally right there. And like it takes so long to get approved for a lot of these. And it's so stressful because it's already a really stressful thing having to go through and like get surgeries or get procedures done. And the fact that a lot of our insurance people who are supposed to be helping us have no idea what is also covered is so stressful. It's even like HR folks who are creating these policies and creating these healthcare plans. Like we have had to go through and tell them explicitly, like, this is the language that we need. Otherwise, you are going to like completely exclude these services. And they're like, and like they don't understand because they haven't had to go through this. They haven't had loved ones who've had to like go through and fight these insurance companies. And it's just such a difficult thing. And it's a very like particular thing too, like language for, procedures such as versus procedures, two completely separate connotations. Like one of them includes specific procedures, one of them doesn't. And so even just like little language changes that most people don't pick up on, like we need to like hardcore search through our documents and have them in there because otherwise people just get denied and people don't realize how much they're allowed to fight for the procedures either because you get told no because these people think that you're not supposed to get it covered, and then if you fight hard enough they will cover it, but most people don't know that you can fight for it. So like there's just so much like background knowledge you need to even start getting healthcare, and it's so stressful. It's so stressful.
God, yes, and it's like a lot of people just decide that it's just like not worth their time to fight for it. So this is something that, oh boy, do I have some personal experience with this one. So being the only Canadian on this panel, my experience is going to be quite different from everyone else here because we have our public oh my god, my brain just stopped working for a second there.
Your health
we have our
insurance
public
is
health care,
public. Yeah.
Which is fine. It covers a lot of things. There's certain things it doesn't cover, and that's why we also have health insurance. So in my case, things like if I want to go at HRT, I don't go through my health insurance. I go to my family doctor. I say, hey, I'm trans. I would like to go on HRT, please. And then they send me to an endocrinologist and I get a prescription. And the drugs that I pay for, those are partially covered through my health insurance. They are not covered through our public health care. But there's a lot of like, say, trans affirming care that I have had to pay out of pocket for because it's either not covered or, as I was saying before, you have to fight so hard for it that it's not even worth your time. So for instance, electrolysis is supposed to be paid for in our like health insurance. It's paid for at a very, very small amount. It's like $20 per session, which is just like cool. It's like,
yeah, and that's $20 Canadian. And how much is it per session
so
out of pocket?
That's like nothing.
100,
that's like
150, 200, 300. Like it's like we'll pay 10%. Lol.
I fought with the insurance company for 6 months to get them to pay for it because I am a very stubborn bee. It's oh boy, when it comes to fighting for stuff like that, I will fight. And it was a nightmare. They were constantly asking me for documentation that didn't exist, and they knew they didn't exist. It's like, oh, we need this like certification. It's like, it's not there. That certification you're looking for doesn't exist, and you know that. Because my electrologist, living where I live, I live in our nation's capital. My electrologist, a lot of her clients are also public servants. So she hears this same rigmarole from all of her clients. And most of her clients decided just not worth their time to fight with the insurance company for months on end to get $20. I am not most people. I did fight for it, and they ended up covering it, and then they decided not to cover it anymore. And at that point, I was just like, yeah, you know what, this is not happening. So I've had to pay quite a lot of money out of pocket for stuff like that. And there's other things that like insurance doesn't even cover. So like, to laser hair removal from my, my body hair, I had to pay for that out of pocket. So now, recent developments is, so if you pay attention to Canadian news, as you should, you may realize that recently our public service switched over to a different insurance company for our public service health plan. And with this new company and this new contract that we signed with them, we're supposed to be getting, I believe the figure is $75,000 lifetime coverage for gender affirming care. And
that doesn't sound like enough because I know how much it costs in America to have those procedures, and your
So-
FFS is 120,000 US. Like,
So, gender affirming surgeries here are covered under our public health care. So, like, if I wanted to get bottom surgery, it doesn't cost me a dime. However, there's only one clinic in the entire country that does it. So as you can imagine, the wait list is quite large. And if I didn't want to wait for however long it is, I would have to go out of
10
country
years.
and pay out of pocket.
And so do you get that 75 grand to go out of country, or it's only in country?
So this is part of my rant here is since they've taken over, it's been a complete disaster. If you Google like Canadian Public Service Health Plan, you will find article upon article upon article of like this insurance company dropping the ball on just coverage for everybody. Like, But I emailed them. I was like, hey, it says $75,000 lifetime for gender affirming care. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. What do you cover? What can I actually submit claims for? No response. So there's a bunch of things that like I would have to pay out of pocket for that are quite expensive that I honestly have no idea if they will cover it or not. And even stuff that like is now covered under this policy, like electrolysis, for instance, they are dragging their feet. Like I submitted a claim for my electrolysis like 2 months ago and they still haven't done it. So like it's hard in this country because like there's a lot of things that we should have on paper in practice are way more complicated and don't actually happen. So like, yes, we have public health insurance. Good luck trying to find a family doctor. Good luck trying to find anything that's like not like life-threatening surgery. You will have to wait months and months and months and months for. So it is, I could rant about this for a very long time. It's something that gets me very riled up. But we have a lot of problems in this country with healthcare, and trans affirming care is one of those problems. And if you're, I'm quite fortunate insofar that like I've been able to pay out of pocket for these sorts of things. I have the income to pay for all my trans affirming care. But for folks that don't, you're basically SOL. Like you can't get these things done because you can't afford it or you can't find someone to do it for you. So
thank you for sharing some Canadian perspective on that, Miranda. Cappy, do you want to talk about insurance and healthcare stuff too? So you work at a tech company, so you have tech company benefits, TM.
I do, yeah.
And they're also changing our insurer between now and next year, and that makes me so mad.
Did they just change all of ours? Like they were like all these big ones.
I don't know.
We're just gonna get rid of it.
They just they all like everyone just hated their insurance company and everyone's fed up with it. So they all just shuffled around.
Oh my God. That's so stressful.
Not realizing that they're all basically the same.
So like the most important advice I can give is for every letter that you have your MD doctor or therapist or psychologist or your neighbor down the street, anyone that wants to advocate that you need gender affirming surgery, have the magic words medically necessary in the letter. Because if you don't, insurance will be like, well, it's not medically necessary because you don't have it in your letter. So you get to burn one of the denial appeals on just getting that term in there, and you'd rather to save time just put it in there at the very beginning. If you've got folks that have written letters, you can give those to your MD doctor, and say, take this letter as a form, just replace the parts that make sense to replace, and send it in. Because if you've got a letter that works for an insurance company that's actually like gotten you the care that you need, then the letter was appropriately worded to let the insurance company know that they can't actually like deny you for this thing. Another thing I would like to tell people is that insurance companies have maybe 3 different levels of what's covered for a company. So there's like the major insurance companies, like, this is what we cover. And if you go read that and you get to the trans care section, usually like they'll cover the surgery, but like everything else that they consider cosmetic. And we don't cover that. But don't stop there. because your company has usually will have like a summary plan description is what they call this document. So go read the summary plan description, which is the thing that kind of goes over the top, is like the top layer of like, uh, okay, take that base level document and then here's what we actually do. And then you read through that and that's like gets you a little closer to like what they actually do cover, including a lot of the cosmetic stuff. And then sometimes they'll have in there what isn't covered, electrolysis. But don't stop there, because sometimes there'll be like, state laws that apply to the top of that and say, well, some state laws are, say that you can't deny things that are considered cosmetic, like electrolysis. So there might be like an addendum or some sort of like a paper that applies on top of that one that says, but actually we do cover electrolysis. Like, it's just a lot to navigate. I ended up being pretty much an expert in navigating my insurance company benefits, like down to like knowing CPT codes that are covered. And like there's, when I went to get FFS surgery, they say like they sort of were generalizing of uh, surgeries that correct, facial features, but they never listed the list of CPT codes for it. And then when my surgeon sent in the list of CPT codes, they're like, oh, but we don't cover that. But actually you do, because these procedures don't actually mean anything unless they're, in the guise of this facial feminization surgery. Right. So yeah, you do cover them, and you have to get your advocates in place. Our workplace has things called a benefit pro person. They're there to navigate all of this like really complex stuff. And sometimes you have to tell the benefit pro everything that you know too. You have to sometimes educate them too. It's really kind of hard. Please lean on your local ERG, your local trans people that have gone through all the surgeries. I personally am one of those people that will tell you everything that happened to me and everything ever.
And confirm.
Yeah, everything that can be navigated. Like, I don't have any like, I will tell you everything. Anything you want to ask me, like every trans person at work, like you can ask me any question. It doesn't matter. Any surgeries, anything like that. Open book, because it's so hard to navigate. You need to have someone that knows how they've done it to navigate it all. And I expect, those that I tell to, to their comfort level, please pass this forward, because I'm not going to be here forever. And there needs to be people here that know all this stuff, because the cis people will not retain this stuff. They will not. And I try to bake that into
to educate everyone, right?
Yeah.
Well, it ends up being my job.
Well, I mean, to the point, like, it's not up to you to individually go to every single person that has questions and educate them on everything they could possibly want to know. I mean, at some point, people have to do their own work.
Yeah, absolutely. Like with trans people, like I can point them at the resources, and then I can tell them like my experiences, and I can tell them you need to go here and here and here and here and here, and you need to reach out to your benefit pro and actually establish them as a person that you interact with on a regular basis, and pre-warn them, like, if you're going to go for bottom surgery, you need to start on electrolysis right now, and this is how you get it covered. And just and maybe they aren't at that point yet, but like, well, if you are going to do it in the future, you might as well just get it done now, because it takes about a year and a half to 2 years to actually like get through all of that. So if you really want bottom surgery in 2 years, you got to start the electrolysis now. The things that people should have told me at the beginning. So that's kind of like, there's the navigating the insurance thing, but also it's like the education of the cis people at the work, the trans people at the work, baking that stuff into documents so that like this stuff is codified and like the advice is there and people know where to go. I was successful. I got, 5 different surgeries, and I am in a position where I'm going to share everything I know for as long as I can.
Something that I can share along the lines of health stuff that I wish was different is I have been working on getting prior authorization for my bottom surgery, which is through Cappy's health insurance. And like I have contacted 2 different surgeons over the course of 2023. I had my consult in person with the first surgeon. He was totally terrible. And I said, no way am I letting you anywhere near my body with a scalpel. Like, no way. And so my backup plan surgeon is across the nation. Like it's a 5-hour flight. It's not a casual decision, but I did a ton of research to find someone that I was fairly confident I was going to have a good medical experience with. And so like my consult with them is maybe it's either tomorrow. No, it's in December on a Tuesday. I don't remember exactly when. But it's coming up. And, one of my fears is that I'll have that consult. I'll be really excited about my surgery. And then with the new insurance in January, they'll be like, oh, we don't work with that surgeon, or, oh, we don't, whatever. And it's like, but I've spent a year on this part. And it's like, you know, if there's one thing I could say to people who make decisions about insurance companies for companies, I don't know if that's the CEO or HR or somebody else, like, please don't change who the insurer is unless you absolutely have to. Because often the wait list for trans surgeries is multiple years long. And if you get in a 3 to 5 to 10 year line for someone, and then your insurance changes out from under you 6 months before your surgery date, and then you have to start over for 3 to 10 years, like you are literally going to have employees, like, this is going to sound dramatic, but you're going to have employees that may unalive themselves about it. Yeah. And I'm just being frank and direct right now. I don't know if I content warning that very well. Sorry if I just triggered people, but like, it is so hard to wait for the procedures that we need to make our bodies in alignment with our souls and our spirits and our inside selves. And I have watched both myself and my wife get our surgery countdown reset because of insurance fuckery. For lack of a different way to say it. I used our one swear, everyone. There was.
That's it. No more.
No more. And like I watch Capybara have a surgery date and then have it get pushed out because of like denials and appeals and all of that. Mm-hmm. And then like just totally, like, she was prepared for surgery. She had all of her physical beforehand stuff done, which if you know anything about trans bottom surgery, often there is a hair removal requirement that takes 1 to 2 years. So she'd been working towards this goal for a long, long time. And then, you know, due to both COVID and insurance, like it just kept getting pushed out and it was multiple years more. And so every time you have to switch surgeons, you have to switch insurance, like it adds years onto timelines because there's such long waits for these surgeries. And so like it's the least compassionate thing you can do for your trans staff is switching insurance companies on us. Like it's not enough to say, oh, the coverage will be the same, because we don't know that for sure. And you know, our lives in some cases depend on us having these surgeries in a timely fashion, because the thought of waiting is too much to bear for some of us. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe part of why this is coming up is Trans Day of Remembrance is coming up in a couple of weeks, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately too. So anyway, I will say though that I've had not 1 but 2 gender-affirming surgeries with our current health insurance setup. I've had top surgery, and I call it my uterus deleterus. Which is not all of the bottom surgeries, but it is a good precursor because it means my body's not putting estrogen in my body that makes my brain go, everything is wrong. So, you know, I'm very grateful for the access to care that I've had, because I know not a lot of people have it, or not enough, or not covered enough. And that's why we do all the mutual aid events that we do. Come to the big trans holiday special in December, everybody. But yeah, we could have an entire panel just about this one topic. So I think I will help us move along to the next question. Thanks for listening to my feelings. Earlier,
I'm always here to listen to your feelings.
Oh, thanks, Miranda. Earlier, some of you mentioned workplace resource groups, so maybe we could spend some time talking about those, what they are, how are they effective, what do they look like? Yeah, so do any of you participate in workplace research groups or ERGs for LGBTQ plus employees, and what have been some of the benefits of joining those groups?
I guess I can start. So I've talked about this a few times before, but I'm involved with the Positive Space Initiative throughout the Federal Public Service. And yeah, it's been good. I actually, so before I cracked my egg, I gave a whole presentation about gender to my entire division of like almost 100 people, for which I actually was recognized and got an award for. So it's like, looking back, it's like, why was I oddly so fixated on trans issues? I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, a lot of it is just kind of doing the basic trans 101 education for employees. But what I find most rewarding about it is helping other trans employees with their workplace transitions. And we've done training sessions and stuff like that, and those are also great. And yeah, I wish kind of if anything, I wish there was like more awareness of like who we are and what we do, because it's kind of like all the queers kind of flock to it, but all the cishets kind of are completely oblivious to it. So it's just like, hey, it's like this exists, like so. But yeah, it's something I've, I don't spend a ton of time on, but I wish there was more opportunity to do more with it, because it is valuable work. It's rewarding work. In fact, I'm looking to do like a lateral move at my work where I can do more stuff like that. So because pushing the buttons in Excel to do the finance stuff it's fine. But I'd rather work on gender stuff because that's more something I'm more passionate about.
I can go next. Yeah, so I didn't get involved, I don't think, in the Pride ERG, Pride Employee Resource Group, or the Trans Inclusion Committee. I think until like 6 or 7 months into it, mainly because I didn't know that it existed. They don't really, again, like Miranda just said, like they just didn't really what's the word? Not support it. Tell people about it. There's a word for that. They didn't really tell people about it. Like it was really hard to find unless you very specifically knew someone who was in it, or you like happened to come across, an email, which never happens because you have to like select into the email list serves, which you don't know about unless you know about the group. So they did a really bad job at like advertising. That's the word. They did a crap job at advertising any of the ERGs, which is very, very sad because I think that they're fantastic, depending on how your company uses it. So I was the lead of the Trans Inclusion Committee for a while, for like a year or so. And then I became the lead of the Pride ERG. And the Trans Inclusion Subcommittee is like a subcommittee of the Pride ERG, but they focus specifically on trans identity, gender identity, things like that. Whereas the LGBTQIA plus Pride ERG focuses more on just like overall, queer identity. So very similar, like they do very similar things in terms of what we work on, events, community building, things like that. But something that's been really nice is that we, thankfully got an executive sponsor, because you have to have a high up executive sponsor of all the ERGs. And he is a very high up white man, which means that we have been getting a lot of things pushed, my friends. We've been getting so many policies updated. It's been so nice because he is gung-ho. He's also queer, but like he is gung-ho on like, he doesn't know none of us are going to know everything that every single person in our community needs. So he has been such a great resource in being like, if we bring something to him, for example, our bereavement policy did not include chosen family, which was real crappy, and people were getting denied bereavement leave, which is real crappy for people that didn't quote unquote count as family members. And so we were able to loop him in and fixed that. That way now folks are able to get that, which is a huge, huge, huge win, I think, for not even just the queer community, but any marginalized community. Like a lot of people of color, like our communities have chosen family, and it's not specifically a queer thing. So like things like that, being able to push so many policies, like we've updated so many things and created so many educational resources. And we recently created a gender transition guidelines document, because when I came out and I transitioned at work, there was literally nothing. Like everything we had was all about like legal name changes, how to change your legal name at work, how to do all these things. And we had like nothing for trans people, nothing for like preferred name changes, which isn't even like a trans person thing. You know, there's a lot of people who use nicknames at work and they had no idea how to change their nickname because they just might have really not liked their name. And so we created that and finally like sent that out, and it's been such a huge, like, I don't know, it's just been such a nice resource for folks. Whenever we pushed it out, we had a lot, like dozens of people like messaging us saying like thank you for this, because you know maybe they were thinking about going through it and like didn't know how to do it because no one tells them, especially in a weird corporate setting where most people are cishet cishet white people. And so just being able to have a space where we can actively work on things by our community for our community is super, super helpful, especially when you're getting paid to do it. Don't make people in the community do it for free. Give us charge codes, give us the monies to do this stuff, because otherwise that's crappy of you to do, corporations.
Mood.
Sorry, that was a big rant.
It's okay. Part 2 is just rant the podcast. Who wants to rant next? I mean, go next.
So this is really helpful to hear how it's been going for y'all. My company's just starting up like specific ERGs. We have had a very informal kind of DEI group. People would meet up, and then it kind of turned into our company just putting together events every month or something. And so I'm kind of I've mentioned it before, but this has given me a lot of info of kind of what to bring back to my company, and how it can be an actual resource group as opposed to a checkbox of like, we have this. So it's just been really helpful to hear everyone's experiences with ERGs.
Cappy, have you shared about ERGs yet?
No.
You want to?
I am a part of my ERG.
Yeah.
I am like I'm a part of the Pride ERG. I'm part of the leadership of the Pride ERG. And I feel like we are doing the good work. You know, it's not it's the meaningful work, and we are trying to push the bar forward for our own company. And we aren't afraid of speaking up about our community and what we need, and we let people know what it means to be, you know, to be out at work and to bring your whole self to work, and also, you know, take what the company says publicly and kind of turn it back on them. Like, well, if you are so concerned about, the progress of humans on this earth or something, whatever it is, you know, your vision, mission statements, well, here you go. You can support your trans employees, and then you can make money like a good capitalist can. And I had this rant just like earlier with GenderMeowster in the living room, like, or even I think it maybe even with my son, maybe my son just my newly 18-year-old son. I'm like, hey, adult, let's talk about adult topics now. Like, yeah, I am where I am because I was a great employee for a startup that this major tech company wanted to buy at one point, like directly, and then they got outbid, and then they had to wait and then swallow a even larger company to get us. So yeah, like I have since I'm like, I have 16 years with the company. I've done good work. You bought our company because I basically ran the UI team for a decade. This is like the front end of what all the customers saw, and this is why our company was valued the way it is because it was great, and I was part of that. And I'm trans and autistic, and if you really want, to make money like good capitalists do, then you'll support your trans employees to help you make money. And if they aren't worrying about being trans at work and like navigating that, and they can just like worry about like writing code and innovating and making patents, well then it's a pretty much a no-brainer to, swallow the bile that's up in your throat, support your trans employees, uh, pretend that you like it, and make money hand over fist. That's what you're here for. And if they want to fly me out to the headquarters and have me stand in front of the CEOs and the C-suite and the whatevers, I grew up on a cattle ranch. I can hold my own. I can stand in front of them and say, like, it's pretty much a no-brainer that we all want to make money. And it's pretty much a no-brainer that trans people are at your company to make a difference. So put your money where your mouth is and fund this stuff and show the world that, yeah, you're on the progressive end of things. And if you've got customers that are too conservative to buy your stuff, well, you've got like, 3 times more progressive companies around the world that will buy your stuff. And so don't worry about those people. They can buy buy the competitor's gear and fail. And you can tell them that. I'm I'm spicy and I can get that way. And this is like, if you want to rant out of me, this is the rant. Like, it's a no-brainer. What are you doing? What the right side of history is. Just look at how, gay people now can get married and it's no big dang deal, right? Well, trans people are just like the latest pariah, and it's all political and we all know it. So
think we lost Cappy.
We may have.
She's frozen.
Rose.
She ranted so hard it broke
Yeah.
What's funny is we're on the same internet
we're actually
connection.
Going to be renaming this podcast Gender Rant.
Gender Rant.
It's a good name. It's a good name.
I'll send her a little message right quick. Well, there you are.
Back.
Hello.
Hooray.
Welcome back.
I don't know what happened there. I think I ranted so hard my computer like had a meltdown.
We literally made the same joke while you were gone.
So
I'm
weird.
clipping it because it was funny.
All of our brains went the same direction. I love it.
Yeah.
We all share one brain cell.
We're just passing it around. Tofi. I'm trying to figure out how to smush some of these questions together. So some of the things that Cappy was just talking about gets to why is diversity important. So I think I'll bring that question to the forefront next. How are each of your multiple diverse identities a superpower for good in your workplace? Or put another way, why is diversity important? Why do people with different neurotypes and different ethnic and racial backgrounds and different genders and sexualities matter in the workplace?
May I go first?
Yeah.
I'll keep it short, less ranty. It's so you can sell into different markets. I mean, essentially, there's that. If you've got a lot of perspectives on making products that will appeal to humans in general, and you are taking into account the intersectionalities and the needs, and especially accessibility needs of folks, you'll end up being in a better place and setting the bar for your competitors to look at the bar and think, wow, we really need to like match that. And that is a good thing because that forces everyone else to make products for everybody and not just single, able-bodied white people.
I think Tofi, you had something to say also. Let Gabby go. Okay, Gabby, you're up. Tag Gabby.
Yeah, I seconding everything you said, Cappy, and adding, I often talk a lot about, I know that I'm kind of like person of one. I can't change everyone at my work. But the thing I often mention is like, I'm not just advocating for me and people who may work here tomorrow, um, but also like our clients are also gonna be somewhere in the gender spectrum, LGBTQ plus IA community. Like it's not just the, oh yeah, you can totally put your pronouns if you want in your signature or whatnot. You're like, from a technical level, yes, of course you can do that. But then it comes down to like, but if other coworkers don't even know what that means, then what's the point? If they don't know what it means, like it ultimately falls on me. So like even just basic level training and understanding, because it's not just going to start and end within the company, it's going to continue externally. Um, in terms of like superpowers for good, like something I've been using as well is kind of like anytime there's like like, there's a diversity panel, I immediately always go to like our comms person. I'm like, I am happy to talk about it if you don't have anyone else for it, or like be part of something. Like I am happy to be, this probably isn't the right word, but like that's the space where I'm like, tokenize me. Like I will give me a mic. Like this is the appropriate time to like tokenize me. I want to be able to talk about it. And so that's been helping me get kind of more of a spotlight to be able to advocate for these things, even if it's taking longer internally, like to get certain things in place. Um, because I feel like one of my goals, for example, like with advertising, which is very like kind of taking off of the products topic you were mentioning, Cappy. Like my like career goal is to hope to make it to a point where it's like, oh, like we all want to make money, but focusing so much on splitting gender, the gender binary, isn't actually making us money. So that's obsolete. That would be my like future goal that I'm putting out into the ether. That um, essentially doesn't put so much emphasis on the binary and just um, accepts that it's more than just that. That it can be anything. That products should be for humans, if we're producing products for humans. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Heavy.
again, because I work in the public sector, we're not in the business of making money or turning a profit or making products or whatever. I mean, we make products, but they're for, public consumption and they're free. So, um, so it's, I mean, I have worked in the private sector, and it's, I've worked in nonprofits as well, and it's, definitely working somewhere where the profit motive doesn't really exist. It only exists insofar that we have a budget that comes down from the prime minister, and we have only like certain amount of money we can use for projects. But beyond that, like we're not making any money. So, uh, but in terms of using my diverse identities, so there's a lot of ways I kind of use those in the workplace. So, because I've had what I say is an interesting life, because I have been many things, I've been many people, and I have a lot of expertise in a lot of diverse subjects. That you can throw projects at me that I will have something meaningful to contribute to just about any project, regardless of what subject matter it is, because I have such a diverse array of interests and diverse array of work experience. So that's like, and it's particularly like where like the areas in which I work, the fact that I worked for a brokerage house for many years, and most people that I work with like basically like came there right out of school and have never worked in the private sector. So I have like a lot of unique experience there that's very valuable. But um in terms of helping out with the diversity, in terms of say supporting gender diverse and sexual diverse people in the workplace, I mean, being probably the only queer person that I know in my division, I'm able to see things through a much different lens. So for instance, if we're sending out, a survey to the public and we're collecting information about their sex or their gender, there's this has gotten a lot better in recent years, but it wasn't that long ago where it's like, first of all, why are we collecting this information? Second of all, is this information relevant to like whatever statistical product we want to put out? And do people understand what the difference between sex and gender is? And do we have the ability to put more than just man and woman in there? And because like for some things, like your sex assigned at birth, like if, for instance, if it's a health survey and we're trying to measure the incidence of, say, prostate cancer, well, we need to know what your sex assigned at birth is for that, because we want to get information from people who have prostates, that sort of thing. But for other things, it's like your time use survey doesn't matter. Like your sex assigned at birth doesn't matter for that. It's whatever gender you want to identify with. So it's identifying like stuff like that, where it's like, cishet person may not necessarily think about those things, but to me, that stuff like jumps out immediately. So I can, point out any sort of errors in like survey design or like communications or anything like that, that it's like, no, we need to update the language on these things. So that's kind of where I yeah, sorry, I'm like, it's good. Oh boy, we've been in this conversation for a long time and I'm running out of functioning brain cells. So
it's all good.
My ability to stay concise is just steadily going down.
Yeah.
I think just piggybacking off everything, yes to everything everyone else has said, right? And like, a corporate lens, having diversity is important because then you get brownie points and all that. But like also as employees of a business, I know that I feel more comfortable the more trans POC there are, like just on a very internal level as a Chinese transgender person. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly the token who has to do everything, because I am one of 12 trans people at my company, and most of the trans people at our company are white. So I am one of very, 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 very little trans people of color at this company, autistic trans people of color. And so because of that, I feel like I constantly have to be the perfect Chinese trans person or just the perfect trans person of color, because for most people, I'm going to be the only one that they will ever know, because a lot of people don't get out of the bubbles. A lot of people don't, know a lot of other trans people of color. And so I feel like I have to represent because of that. And that is something that I wish I didn't have to do. Like, I feel like I constantly have to be the person pressuring for HR policies to get updated. I have to constantly be the person who has to educate people. I have to, because if I don't, because I am one of few, then I have failed all the other trans people who will ever come into this job, if there are any others, because we had a lot of trans people leave whenever I started because we just didn't have resources for them. And they had really like horrible times to the point where they all just left. And so I think diversity is super important, and especially intersectional identities, because I feel like a lot of us don't want to see that we're the only people there, because then it feels like we're a token. It feels like we do not belong. It feels like all the company things that we do are not for us, because they're not by us, they're not for us. They barely include people who look or sound like us. And so just in order to have a safe workplace in general, like we need to have more diversity, because I'm never going to feel safe in a primarily white cis space. But I need to survive, because capitalism, this is the only job that's going to give me the money I need to survive.
Yeah.
It's a rock and a hard place.
Become a public servant like me.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have about 20 minutes left for stream today. I have 2 questions left. We have some wrap up things. So maybe two minutes each per answered per person, if we can help it. So instead of saying all the things that you wish HR would know, maybe everyone can pick a thing. One thing that you wish that HR or coworkers would know about what it's like to be gender diverse in the workplace. How can companies improve their spaces and make it more trans inclusive? I wanted to slide some things in at the beginning of this answer. So first, I wanted to offer a resource. It's nonbinary.wiki/wiki/employment. It's a website that's made in part with one of the Clouder contributors, actually. JuiceText has played an important role in that existing. And if you are working in HR and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start, like maybe start with this website. There's a lot of information on there. It'll also be linked in the show notes in the resources section, so you can check that out. I also wanted to say one sort of phrase when I was listening to Gaby talking a minute ago. There's a phrase that became really popular in the 1990s in the disability activism groups about nothing about us without us. And so when we talked about it a lot in the Twitch chat, and I don't know that we have brought it verbally into the conversation. So for the benefit of podcast listeners in the future, I wanted to make sure that we mention that, you know, it's important to have trans people, people of color, disabled people, neurodivergent people in HR in decision-making positions where we are participating in the creating of the policies that affect people like us. And so as much as possible, nothing about us without us. And I just wanted to nod to our disability activist ancestors in that, and not forget to mention that it was their thing that they started. So anyways, what is one thing that you wish HR or coworkers knew about being trans in the workplace that would make the company's more trans inclusive? And we'll go Tofi, Cappy, Gaby, Miranda.
I think that we're suggesting things because it's going to make things inclusive. Like I've had many times where we've suggested things in the ERG and we get shot down because it's like, oh, but cis people are going to abuse this, like, or cis people are going to make fun of this. And I'm just like, we're trying to make this more trans inclusive. If you think that specific cis folks are going to abuse this or like, do bad things with it, then why do you want them at this company in the first place? Like, why are you suppressing our needs because of bad actors that aren't in our community? So I just wish that more HR and coworkers knew that, we're not the ones who are going to abuse these policies. It's just making them more equitable for us. And it sucks that we can't have them because you all suck.
Yeah.
That's my short answer.
Agreed. Cappy.
This whole thing with pronouns is so blown out of proportion for what they are. And I wish that cis people really did understand that I'm not here to shove pronouns down your throat. I'm giving you my pronouns so that I don't get misgendered by you. And it's, I don't want you to get it wrong because then I'll call you out in a meeting and say that you're wrong. And I will, because I have. And you don't want that embarrassment, do you? So use the pronouns that I give to you. You can put your pronouns or you don't. And if you don't, then I'm going to assume things and you may not like it. And if you don't like it, put your pronouns in. Simple. And we don't have to like go on and on like, with this whole rhetoric of pronouns and all this thing. It's English or whatever language we're speaking here. This is things that you've learned in like 7th grade English. Did you remember 7th grade English and what pronouns are? Do you know what your own pronouns are? I've had to teach people what their own pronouns are. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me that I had to give them an English lesson of like, you go by she or he. I'm like, what? Like, if I say the sentence, she walked to the store to buy an ice cream, does that apply to you? I'm like, yes. Then you're she, her. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. And it's weird. But I'm just hoping eventually, like maybe in 5 or 6 years, that everyone will kind of get the pronouns thing down. I'm hoping.
Thanks, Cappy. Gaby, what's one thing you wish HR coworkers knew about being gender diverse?
Seconding what everyone else has said.
Yeah.
Partial rant. guys isn't gender neutral.
Sure
Like
is not.
that's one. That's one. But
That
I
is a
would say
funny joke.
two is, and this kind of comes from like when I went went to film class. One of the exercises they make you do is to count the number of cuts, like in a movie or film. So I would say what I wish coworkers or HR knew. I wish they knew how gendered language is in
Mm.
general at work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, and ableist and a bunch of other things that still definitely happen. Um, but I think they'd be surprised at how gendered the language is. Um, uh, and also, intrusive questions are intrusive. Um, yeah. So again, story behind that for another time, but it's surprising how one small disclosure of pronouns can all of a sudden apparently signal to somebody to ask a lot of intrusive questions in a work setting in
Yeah.
public.
It's not like I'm asking other people about how's their cancer treatment going, and how's their recovery from having that baby, and how'd your rectum inspection by your doctor go? Your annual.
Did your coochie twist back up after that little pap smear? Like,
Yeah.
sorry,
We're not asking those questions. Stop asking us about our trans surgeries. There is no one the surgery either. Like, heck off.
Yeah.
Unless we're friends.
Oh,
I'm not
boy.
telling you. It's not your business.
So how'd the proctologist go? How was the anal probe?
Did you like your butt camera? I have actually I have a funny joke that I like to tell about the whole like guys being gender neutral thing is like whenever like a cishet guy tries to tell me that the term guy is neutral, I ask them how many guys they've had sex with.
Nice.
it becomes very ungender neutral at that
Yes.
point. They're like,
They get
what?
real uncomfortable.
My version of that, and I'm so sorry, I know you gave us the time.
It's okay. You're all doing
Meowster.
great. You're doing great.
My response lately to folks who are heavy on the guys, I'll refer to myself as, I'll use guy singular, and that breaks their whole brain. So I'll respond by, oh yeah, like I find myself as like the type of guy that like chit chats with their barber. And you see just the panic
Panic.
of
Panic.
who, what, where. And then I usually go like, I have another meeting.
Oh yeah, me and the guys are just gonna go buy some tampons. It's all of our period at the same time as the moon is doing what it's doing.
Well, just regular guy stuff.
This guy stuff. That needs to be like a Saturday Night Live skit about guy stuff,
it's
and
right
it's all
here.
not.
Oh my god!
Please send it to me. I want to watch it. Miranda, did you already go?
No, I was waiting for a break in the shenaniganery. But yes, I guess my number one thing is making sure everyone is actually trained on policies and procedures, because it's one thing to have the stuff on paper, but it's another thing to actually have people actually aware of it. So like in my personal case, like when I changed my email, I was told it's like, no, it has to be your legal name. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. You don't have to do a legal name change to change your email. Lots of people don't use their legal names, like even cis people, like lots of people go by their middle names. People get married or stuff like that. So it's like just making sure that everyone, both in HR, IT, anyone that has to like work with like updating employee records is actually trained and like is aware of these policies and procedures. I mean, I get that like this is not something that comes up very often, but it should be part of their basic training. I shouldn't like have to explain their jobs to them.
All right. So my final question, we've taken a moment to give some advice to potentially any cis people who are listening, who are wanting to be our allies and do what they can to help us. But our final closing question is advice from gender diverse people to gender diverse people. So T for T, if you will. That's actually about dating. Don't use that casually. T for T is when you're dating another trans person. Anyways, so what advice do you all gainfully employed trans people, TM, have for any gender diverse folks who are trying to land a quote unquote good job? Maybe someone who's trying to apply for work or has a job interview coming up, or even is trying to figure out how to come out at work. What do you wish someone would have told you when you were doing all of that? And each of you gets a piece of advice. Good luck. If we want, Gabby can go first, so then you don't have to think of an answer that no one else has said.
I can go first? Or Gabby?
Okay.
I was going to say Gabby.
Oh, okay. Really quickly, you don't have to disclose anything you don't feel comfortable disclosing, period. So especially when you're interviewing, I would say if you're feeling like you're coming from a place of strength and that specific moment, if you're feeling it, like the confidence will shine through. And if it's a genuine concern and you're feeling you're coming from a place of strength during the interview process, or even say you do get hired, yay, even asking like what during your onboarding, like what resources are there for someone like me who identifies as insert here. But I would say, oh, still first piece, still all within one run-on sentence piece of advice. If the first person you go to for help minimizes you or negates your experience, go to your next place of support. They might not have the information to help you or the guidance that you're seeking, but don't let that be the end all be all. Keep going. I'll pause there.
Thanks, Gabby. Okay, next is Miranda.
I was gonna say we should let Cappy go next because she might have to leave in the next couple minutes here. So
next is Cappy.
I cede my slot to her.
I see your seed and I raise. So let's see. Piece of advice. You don't have to reveal everything. I think that was already said. Be the most professional person that you can, but also don't hide your authenticity, because I think it's important that people see who you really are. And if an employer does not acknowledge your authenticity, then move on and pick someone else. And I think that's really important in this day and age to just be really honest and upfront with who you are and show like what you have to offer. And I think you'll come across as like more genuine and more honest. And if employers are not looking for that, then this is bad advice. But I think it's good. I think it is good. And as a software engineer and as someone that's seen my share of applicants, I go for the ones that are more genuine, will give honest answers and don't try to like paper over things. So I think it really, it may be context dependent upon like the job that you're going for. But as far as like software engineers, we are looking for technical prowess, honesty, and the ability to solve problems and be very like upfront about how you're doing that.
Thanks, Cappy. Tofi, do you want to go next?
Yeah. I always feel bad because I always have the opposite advice. Because I think prioritizing your safety is always the first and foremost, and not all of us have the privilege of having like family to fall back to or like money to fall back to, and not everyone can like afford to be out in their authentic self, unfortunately. So I think like mainly like, yes, if you're able to, do it, because we want to make sure that you are, your full self, but realizing that that is a privilege that not everyone has. So like mainly just like knowing that it's okay if you cannot be out, and knowing that, if you need to, do what I did and cosplay as a woman for the first year or two in order to actually scope out how good a company is and how willing they are to change. And if you're comfortable with that, and then like transitioning like into the workplace when you've like, met trans people there, or like know that they're like working on DEI or doing things that that like are pushing forward inclusivity. That way, that you're safe, you've got job security, you're able to like afford food, able to like afford a house over your head, a roof over your head. Like your safety is super important. And also adding in on like job applications, like if you see on the job thingy that they are very, very, interested in DEI, or if you like research their company that you're trying to apply to and see that they're super into, DEI, making an inclusive environment, add that to your job profile. Be like say that you got ideas and you like, looking over HR policies to make sure that they're more equitable for folks, or if like you're going through their, job application and they're not asking for pronouns or asking only for legal names, asking during a job interview, being like, hey, have you thought about this? Like in terms of equity, maybe like, have you thought about adding a preferred name slot? That way they know that you can bring something other than like the actual job, because they want more, they're greedy. So making sure that you're able to help push them forward, because the company is going to want to exploit you, and make sure that you're bringing something, and making them more profitable. And so adding in DEI stuff to your resume and stuff does a lot if the company is committed to it. So
yeah, thanks, Tofi. Miranda, what do you want to add?
Well, I can give a lot of general advice for job interviews and applying for jobs and stuff like that. Just because where I work, the hiring process is very different from private sector. But I mean, I've actually done like a one-on-one like job coaching session with one of my friends, so this is something I know quite a lot about. But when you're doing your interview, the most important thing is to come up as confident that assuming you are the right person for the job, which, you went on this interview thinking that you were the right person for the job, that energy has to come across. So it's basically like, don't beg for the job. You are doing them a favor by allowing them to purchase your labor. So you have to kind of give off this energy that like, I'm the best person for this job and you are a fool to not hire me. So like you really have to like give off that energy, and they will pick up on that. Of course, make sure you're actually qualified for this job. Don't do that if you don't know what you're doing. But if you're kind of like younger, like if you're just coming out of high school, or if you're still in college, it very much depends on the type of career you want to go into. So like if you want to go into something, STEM related, get your degrees, finish your school, do that, stay in school, get good grades, do your extracurriculars, try to do an internship or a co-op. All that stuff really, really helps. If you're more on the creative side, that stuff it's still good. Like still, if you want to make movies, going to film school, still a good idea, but it's not as necessary. So, and yeah, network as much as you can, because this is absolutely true. Getting a job is more about who you know than what you know. So. And if you have any specific questions about getting hired within the Canadian Federal Public Service, reach out to me privately, and I'd be happy to give you any help with that.
Thank you so much, Miranda. For those listening and watching live, I just dropped all of our guests' info in the chat. I'll briefly read through our guest cross promo, because I think we read it in part 1, but now we're in part 2. So Tofi, they, them is a queer, non-binary Asian American content creator who loves Shrek and aims to build a community where everyone can exist proudly and safely in their identity. You can connect with Tofi on twitch.tv/Tofilium, which is TOFILIUM. TransCapybara is my wife. She is an aro-ace lesbian trans woman who also serves in a trans advocacy role, along with being a professional software engineer for a worldwide tech company. Gaby M, they, them, has over 15 years of experience in broadcast and digital production across multiple industries, always focusing on the opportunities of storytelling for different screens and audiences. They currently work in ad technology, leading a global team of creative strategists and interactive video designers. You can connect with Gaby on LinkedIn at gmaestre, Maestre. Sorry if I said it poorly. I'm seeing nods. Thumbs up. Okay, thanks. And Miranda, she, her, is a queer trans content creator and ne'er-do-well, making videos about whatever her brain is hyper-focusing on at the moment. You can catch her work on youtube.com/@NassAttack, NassAttack. She's also my wonderful co-host on this podcast, so you'll hear from us again. Thank you all so much for being here. We now have our Clowder query, and each of you, well, most of you have posed a query for the audience. So for those that have written queries, could we go around and have you share them with chat?
Yes, mine is, how can you make your space more inclusive for trans employees?
Nice. Gaby.
Using my otherness has helped me get opportunities in my career. How have you used your otherness?
Nice. And Cappy.
How does your workplace support transgender and gender diverse employees so that they may bring their full selves to work?
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here on the panel with me. It has just been a total honor, and we could have gone for more hours. I just know it. So thanks for joining me in the wonderful info dump that is this panel. So folks, coming soon next week, our guest is going to be Rafi Marhaba, they, them pronouns, and we are discussing art, activism, and spirituality. For community updates, we are going to be observing Trans Day of Remembrance on November 20th on the Twitch channel. So join us at GenderMeowster, twitch.tv/GenderMeowster for Trans Day of Remembrance. If you don't know what that is, Google it. And we also have the last 3 years of VODs on the YouTube channel if you want to go see what that kind of has looked like in the past. We are also participating in the Trans Holiday Special, which is put on by not only GenderMeowster, but also Gender Federation and also our friends of the Transverse. So it's going to be a big streamer raid train from December 15th through 17th on Twitch, on various Twitch channels. It is very likely that the schedule will be live on the Gender Federation channel. So you all can check that at any point to find out who's live. But our little GenderMeowster stream on that is going to be on the first day. Momster and I are going to do a tarot reading for the whole next year, for 2024. So if you want to show up for that, and then we'll do readings for chat as long as we have time before our scheduled raid on the train. So if you all would like to come see my mom, who we call Momster, one more time this year before we ring in the new year, we'll be maybe kicking off, but at least on the very first day of the raid train with that. Genderful would like to thank all of our supporters on Patreon. Our newest one is Miranda Katita. Hey, thanks, Miranda. Holly Blash, Winter Vespers, Loch Ness Gamer, Justin Baker Rojas, YCO, Ray of Swords, Sherry Keller, Mirami, the Hessian, and TransCapybara. Thanks for believing in me from the beginning, honey. That's very nice. All right, folks. Trans rights are human rights. Please enjoy our outro. Genderful would like to thank our guest for being on this podcast. If you'd like to catch us live, join us on Mondays on twitch.tv/GenderMeowster. Show notes will appear in the edited versions of the show on Fridays on both YouTube and podcasting platforms.
If you have a question you'd like the host to answer or are gender diverse and would like to request an interview, please send an email to genderfulpodcast@gmail.com or sign up via the website at genderfulpodcast.com.
As a gender diverse community, the Clowder wants to assure our listeners that we're prepared to moderate our spaces. We will get positive and negative feedback on these shows and topics, and we have a moderation team on our channels, socials, and Discord server ready to deal with this.
Please join our Discord server at discord.gg/meowster to meet the community and get a regular digest of solidarity resources. You can also support us with subscriptions on Patreon, following and reviewing us on your favorite podcasting platform, or engaging with our posts and content on social media at GenderfulPod and at GenderMeowster.
You can take a few minutes to rate the show. We will post any 5-star reviews on our socials, so get creative. Mention a special interest of your own, a project you're working on, or even say hi to your comfort person in your review. What power!
This show is made possible by volunteers, tips, and subscriptions. Shout out to the folks helping us coordinate guests, edit the podcast, moderate the live chat, and post on our socials.
Here's our artist credit. Genderful is hosted by Miranda Katita and GenderMeowster. Genderful's pre-show is wrangled by JuiceTex. Genderful's live stream is produced by Mirami. Genderful is edited and mixed by Transgriffin and Free Range Megs. Genderful's promos and thumbnail graphic are designed by Transgriffin. Genderful's social media is managed by Kinsey. Genderful's theme song is called Hope by Free Range Megs, also known as Soma. The current GenderMeowster logo was designed by Siptopia. Genderful is the intellectual property of GenderMeowster. All rights reserved.
Trans rights are human rights. That's right.